Well, hello everybody. My name is Germán Esteban Moreno Rojas. I'm the student of the class of frameworks, and today I'm gonna present you my brief presentation about a component that is, as you can pretty much see in the second slide. With me a minute. Yeah, now. So a component is like a chunk of code which main target is to be reused. That's the key thing to remember about a component. A component is a piece of code that you select in a file that you establish, and later in your project you're going to be calling it in several more files. So a component is kind of like, for example, when you're using a color, you know that, for example, when you're shadowing a drawing, you're going to use it later. So you're going to, for example, keep the lights and understanding and establishing the component of relationship that you're going to use. So that's a component. The importance. So the main idea of a component is that it's allowed coding recycled. As I pretty much said, you can very much select it or call it in different parts of your application. The code reuse helps to organize, understand, and implement the component in various files of your programming. As you can see in this schema, for example, you got your app, your mini app bar, product list, a card drawer, and you can pretty much see that everything is connected. So the main target of the component is to recycle code that you don't have, for example, to create the same button in various files. So you just make it one time or once, and later you call it in different apps or parts of your app. A daily use and study area. For example, as you can pretty much see, some things that you're gonna, for example, remember is that a header, a toolbar can be some components because you can have it in different parts of your selection of codes or your app. For example, you can see a very explanation that is in daily solution components come in handy to recycle and reuse some special lines of code. The main things and of code turns to be easier when the special component is called. In studying areas, being able to reuse components helps you to understand navigation and clean code. As this very last part says, clean code is something important because you want, for example, other developers or even yourself to remember and to know specifically where you call it. So if you got a component, you know that you can go to the, for example, the directory or folder of components and call, for example, your header, as you can see in this image. The conclusion. So, for example, in modern objectives, as we are seeing or using Next.js, and for example, using React as CSX, are foundation for creating modular and reusable pieces of this application. They allow developers to break down the interface into smaller, manageable parts and easier to build, maintaining, and reuse across pages by combining the power of React components-based structure with Next.js. Both frameworks help each other to create very easy to understand components and reuse them. Features like server-side rendering and routing. Developers can create efficient, scalable, and user-friendly application, as we have see, for example, in the very first explanation the teacher gave us. The server-side rendering is something important to keep in mind because you need to be efficient, not to for example, overcharge your server and be able to connect it every single piece of code very easily. We got, for example, a very small code that is component greeting JSX is greeting in React. So we got a export default function greeting. We're getting or developing a green thing. So we are returning a hello, welcome to my next app. It's a h1, a title. So we're gonna later in apps.jsx that we are gonna call it import greeting from, and the very source that is components greeting that we don't know where it is, but we know that that's the source that they're gonna get in the console. Export default function home. We create a function, call it home, and later we return it greeting backslash. So slash, sorry. And with that, the thing hello, welcome to my next .jsx app exclamation mark is gonna be shown in your, for example, in your local host. When you select npm run dev, it's gonna be seen. So that's the very important of function. And that's thanks for the time. That's everything that we need to know at the time, for example, for a brief description of what a component is. So this is the end of my presentation.